On today's show, the Portland Trailblazers finally trading Damian Lillard. The saga comes to an end. We'll grade the return for the Blazers. Plus, Portland's future. Is Chauncey Billups the head coach to spearhead this new rebuilding era of Portland Trailblazers basketball? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, you shouldn't have to stress about buying tickets when you're trying to go out and have a good time, right? Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events happening near you. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, so you know exactly the type of bang you're getting for the buck that you are spending. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even a half hour after it starts. It is the place to go for last-minute tickets. They've got zone deals. You pick your section, and Game Time picks the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your very first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Blazers, Mike Richman, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Blazers. Mike, the Damian Lillard saga coming to an end. You called it. The trade happened, but it wasn't the Miami Heat. We were in this spot exactly 1 week ago, trying to figure out what was going to happen with Damian Lillard, and what a trade it was. As it currently stands, the current trade return for Damian Lillard: DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Toumani Camara, 3 first-round picks, and a couple pick swaps across the board. And they could still flip Malcolm Brogdon. There's still pieces that, could be on the move here. So just your immediate reaction, how does this return so far stack up compared to what felt like the expected return all summer that we thought we were headed for Damian Lillard in South Beach?
I think they did a better job than what they would have gotten from Miami in the end. They didn't necessarily approach it the way typically you do with these sort of rebuilding type pivot trades, where you prioritize draft capital, salary relief, and draft assets, and young players rather. Excuse me. And they didn't get anyone in return who's on a rookie contract other than Toumani Camara. They did not get, they didn't get salary relief. They took on Ayton's fat contract into the future. Robert Williams has 2 years left. Malcolm Brogdon has 2 years left, but they went a maybe non-traditional route compared to what we've seen in recent superstar trades. And I think they did a good job. I think the risk on Ayton is worth it. Robert Williams, if he's healthy, is very, very good. And the Blazers now can play him backup minutes because they have real center depth with him and Ayton. That's like kind of an enviable center rotation in the league all of a sudden for a team that played freaking Yusuf Nurkic and Drew Eubanks, and then a lot of Trendon Watford last year. So quite a change. The picks are similar to maybe what it would have been for Miami. Late picks, down into the future and some swaps. But I think it is better to bet on Milwaukee bottoming out in 2029 than Florida not becoming an appealing place for millionaires to live. It's just, we have more evidence that Milwaukee has had, bigger lulls in their as a franchise than the Miami Heat, who've been good pretty much always.
The piece that, DeAndre Ayton feels like kind of this, it feels like he has kind of a negative rep right now, coming off of, a not great postseason run with the Suns, kind of a depreciated asset a little bit here. But as far as being the centerpiece of a trade, right, I think that people are maybe a little bit short-sighted or maybe some short-term memory here, just because he was a number 1 overall pick, right? He had a good place on that Phoenix Suns team. He was a big part of their finals run before, and I think this could be a good position for him to rehabilitate his value a little bit. His contract is a little bit on the more sizable side, but he's still only 25 years old, right? There's really nowhere to go but up for him alongside the rest of this Blazers young core that they've got.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged 18 and 10 and people act like he's bad. And I get it, right? I watched him play in the playoffs. He could be a frustrating fellow. I also watched the 2021 playoffs where he guarded Jokic as well as anyone has in 2 years. He played with a real verve and real force in that run. He didn't have it after that. Things went sideways in Phoenix. And then there was the whole contract situation. Clearly he didn't get along with Monty Williams. He's getting a chance to be sort of free of that system in a place where they're probably going to play faster than they did in Phoenix, which I think can help him. And, he might not ever be this sort of defensive monster, right? He might not ever be this crazy glass cleaner guy, but I think he has a chance to average like 23 and 12 in Portland with like relatively minimal improvement to his game. And I think if you get a 25-year-old who averages 23 and 12, it's a decent flyer to take. That's a great place to start. And you say, we have a 7-footer who can really score. We'll figure out the rest later.
What does this kind of the way that Joe Cronin navigated this whole situation, this entire offseason, tell us about his kind of competency as a manager, as a GM?
Well, my gut says to say bad words, but I'll respect the Locked On podcast. It suggests that he's a real bee in your bonnet, right? I think he really upset the Damian Lillard and his camp on the way out of town. And he did it because he said, I don't like the Miami package. I'm not going to negotiate with him because I don't like it. And then he it seems like pretty much stopped communicating or cut off communication with Damian Lillard's camp. And depending on whose reporting you read, he did it on purpose because he was concocting this big trade which sends Dame to a really good spot, to be clear. It's a really good spot for Dame to end up. But he was willing to prioritize team over departing star, which is literally his job. It's quite literally his job. So I think this was a really good summer for Joe Cronin because it looked like for a while he was going to get bullied and kind of look, I don't think his job would have been in jeopardy if there was only one team that was really interested.
But it's really hard for managers to come out on top of a situation like this. Star Dame man's out. You're operating 100%. With no leverage whatsoever.
Yeah, he found whatever leverage he possibly could and got a solid return. Again, it's not maybe a traditional return that we've seen from superstars recently, but this is a solid return. And if they flip Brogdon further, and get more draft capital and young players or whatever it might be, and you continue to expand the return on Damian Lillard, he's just going to look better. I think it was a TBD after the first portion of this trade where they acquired Jrue Holiday. And it looks, I think this is a straight up good deal for Dame now that we've made it 2.5 days later post the Jrue Holiday era. We hardly knew ye.
Yeah, Jrue Holiday, shout out to his amazing Blazers era. Can't wait to see his jersey up in the rafters with the other Blazers greats. And kind of pitting those two teams against one another, right? The two teams kind of vying for Dame and then going, hey, well, you know what, Boston, you missed out on Dame, but we've got a lightly used Jrue Holiday. How would you feel about that? And then, being able to get more assets back for him. I think it's an absolute steal of a deal. I think he navigated the situation incredibly well. I think
he also created the Holiday market by making the trade, right?
That's right.
Because Milwaukee gets better and Boston says, oh crap, we need to get better also. So he had artificially created a Jrue Holiday market, a demand for Jrue Holiday that didn't exist by making the trade. So he did a great job, I think.
And if it wasn't Boston, it may have been one of the other Eastern Conference teams, right? Maybe Miami comes knocking because they missed out on Dame. Maybe Philadelphia tries to get involved because they need a new backcourt partner because James Harden is still going to be MIA. No idea what's going on in that situation in Philly. So there was a lot to be said for how he navigated that whole situation. I think he deserves a lot of respect for how he made this whole thing come about. The last thing here, though, that I'm so curious about kind of going into the season, what is this year like for Chauncey Billups, right? Because he was brought in to coach a team that wasn't full of 19 and 20-year-olds, right? This is a very different team than the team he was brought in to coach. Is he on the hot seat? Is there maybe trust in the organization that he can be the guy to see them through what is now officially, now that Dame is gone, the start of a Blazers rebuild?
I don't think his seat is hot right now. And I think that on Media Day on October 2nd, they are going to give Chauncey the loudest vote of confidence possible to lead this team. Great. That's a good thing to say. They should say that. This is the year he needs to prove he can be a good coach in the league. The first year was a mess. The second year, he was not successful. So you get a free pass. and then you get a bad year. I don't think you get a second bad year after those two. So I don't think they need to be good, right? They can win 32 games. They can win 27 games. Like, they could be bad. They can lose 50 games. It's fine. They just need to have an identity. He needs to help this young group develop an identity. What do they do? And when you play the Blazers, what are they going to be? Because last year, what they were going to be is an offense led by Damian Lillard and one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Dame's gone. You have a chance to put your stamp on it, and Chauncey's got to put his stamp on it, and then they can decide whether he's part of the future or not.
What more will the Blazers be able to flip from the remains of the Damian Lillard trade? What will the future look like in Portland? Can Chauncey Billups put his stamp on the team? You'll have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Blazers. Mike, appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thanks for having me.